Okay, here we go. This is the 2017 professional edition of the CPT manual, Current Procedural Terminology. This manual is one of three that we'll be going over. This first one covers only the action part of the medical side of physician practice. It covers any surgeries, minor, major, and covers any professional services that doctors provide, like doctor office visits, doctor case management and nursing homes, emergency rooms, all of that. That's all covered in here. All outpatient, all physician-based. Okay, so here we go. Let's get into this. This video is just going to cover the basics of the CPT manual, just kind of figuring out what's even in here, not any specifics in any sections really. That will be a video by video for each section. This will just give an overview, get your manual tabbed, and then kind of get your feet wet on what we'll be covering. This professional edition comes with a tab page here. Yours will have all the tabs in here. I've already tabbed mine. I did it with these pre-printed. I normally do my own, but I do it pre-printed now for you guys. And so you'll see through the course of the video where I've placed them. Now I have a lot of extra tabs up along here that are kind of specialty tabs. You may not want to do any of the specialty ones for now and wait and use them when we actually get into the sections, when those tabbings will actually mean something to you. Okay, so this front flap here, let me get this where you can see it, has two columns. Up in the corner here are the symbols, which we'll go over in just a minute. Then you go into a list of modifiers. These are physician-based modifiers. These are for your physicians to go on physician codes, whether they're E&M or procedure codes. I do want to point out this section over here. Right here, it says modifiers approved for hospital outpatient use. You must underline that. Maybe title this for physicians and title this for hospital outpatient. There are some modifiers that are the same in these lists, but the modifiers over here that are not in the physician list cannot be used for a physician. They need to be used for a hospital only. So this is one of the 1,000 things that I'm going to tell you that you need to label. And then we have some HCPCS modifiers that we'll go over later. But this is just a quick reference that once you get used to your modifiers, this is a great place to go to try to figure out what you need to use. Okay, so moving on. This next page here is your place of service codes. Coding wise, we don't use these too much. These actually go on the claim forms and are a 2-digit. You can see down this column, they're a 2-digit that let the insurance company know where the service was actually provided. We won't be using those, but just so you know that it's there. Then kind of some junk pages. The actual CPT manual does have a table of contents that breaks down each of these sections. It won't be of any use to you. Why they waste the paper, I don't know, but they do. I guess potentially it would help you kind of know what's in a section, but each, which I'll show you in a minute, each of these sections, these big sections here, have a table of contents in the front of them. So if your book's labeled, you really don't need this. Then we have an introduction section, if I can get mine open. Has some good information in here. As much as I focus on guidelines, I think it might be best for you at this point to potentially not waste your time reading it. Get through the chapter in the textbook first. then maybe come back and read it and see if it doesn't make a little bit more sense to you. It's probably going to feel like reading a second language, although coding is like reading a second language. So we will cover everything in here. Just remember that you probably will need to or want to come back and read this just to make sure that you know everything. This does kind of have some explanations here regarding the symbols in the CPT manual, but we'll go over those in just a minute. There are a couple of pages here that have either some medical terms or some illustrated pictures. Feel free to make notes. All of these should be somewhat familiar to you since we're just coming out of medical terminology. A few pictures. We'll talk about these pages later. And then we get to our first real section. As you see, it's red all the way up and down. I have my E&M put on there. I try not to get close to the camera because we have huge focusing issues. I think I figured out my sound, but the focusing thing I still haven't been able to figure out yet. So you guys just got to bear with me. I promise it's good information that you're getting. Okay, so like I had said, the beginning of every single section has its own table of contents. This is the table of contents that might be very, very helpful and useful to you. This is the table of contents that I might get familiar with. Hopefully by the end of the course you will not be dependent on the index when being in the CPT manual. Hopefully. But this could be a very, excuse me, been sick, very useful tool for you, especially here at the beginning navigating these sections. So this is our first tab, E&M section. Now, just turn to a random page. It doesn't matter what your page is. If you look along the bottom, do you see along the bottom here? These are the symbols. On every single page of the CPT manual, you will have these symbols. They mean the same, the whole book, or the whole manual. The star over here is telemed. That means whatever services have a star by them are eligible to be telephonic or done not face-to-face and still have the physician or provider receive some reimbursement. The plus sign is an add-on code. We'll talk about that. Add-on codes cannot be coded by themselves. They always have to be piggybacked onto a standalone code, and we'll talk about that. Your lightning bolt is an FDA approval pending. That means they're in there pending approval. That's pretty self-explanatory. Your number sign is a resequenced code. There's quite a few codes now. They've kind of dominoed with those that are resequenced. So if you see a code that is, quote, resequenced, then it's not numerically where it should be. And so sometimes you really have to search for these things to find them. Your blue, green, and red arrows generally talk about where you can find the supporting rule or something like that. Generally, it's always in either the CPT assistant or the CPC changes. Publication. I am so sorry. I was trying to do this when I wasn't going to cough. I am so sorry. And I did that right in the microphone. Sorry. I try to catch it. So that's what those mean. You don't have to worry about it. They're not anything significant that we're going to be doing anything with. It just provides you with some support to figure out why they're using the code like they're using it. But there's really nothing that we're going to be going into depth on in this course to worry about it. I'm just explaining why it's there. Moving over to the next page, you have a blue triangle. This is a revised code. That means the code probable usage has been changed or modified. Your red dot is a new code, so it would be brand new to this edition. Your green sideways triangles means that the text or the description's been revised. These three, all three of them, if you don't know the previous CPT editions, I wouldn't worry about it. It explains why you're seeing what you're seeing, but you don't know the difference, so I wouldn't fret about it too much. And then you have your circle with a line through it, which is a modifier 51 exempt, which means you wouldn't use a 51 modifier on it. We don't know what a 51 modifier is right now. It's okay. I'm just telling you what that says. So throughout the entire book, those are the symbols. That's what you use to kind of navigate around and understand the book. So let's move to the next section. It's in blue. It's on page 53. You see blue along here. This is the Anesthesia section. Again, you have your table of contents. Anytime you have these green pages, that's a guideline page. Throughout the entire manual, if you have your green pages, those are guideline pages. Don't worry about the notes written in here. When I do this actual section and have a video only on this section, we'll go over those. Okay, so the next section is actually on page 69. And this one you can do one of two things. I do not, let me show you. I do not put in, do you see this green surgery here? I don't flag this page as surgery because there's only 2 surgery codes right here. Then it goes right into the skin section. I know they're there. I just don't worry about it. For you guys, you may need to flag, excuse me. You may need to flag that this general, there's 2 codes here that are surgery, and then also flag it that it's the integumentary or the skin section. However you want to do it. And again, don't worry about the notes that you're seeing. We'll go over those. Okay, the next section after the skin or the integumentary section starts on page 101, and it's the musculo, no, actually, I lied. Starts on page 99. It's the musculoskeletal system. Again, has your table of contents. Musculoskeletal, several pages, good pictures of stuff, and we'll talk about those. Next section is your respiratory section. Starts on page 171, respiratory. Again, with your table of contents. Then you have your cardiovascular section. This starts on page 191. Good pictures of the heart in here that you may want to label and put lots of notes in when we cover the heart. We will spend one whole week just on this section because it's kind of involved. The next section is the digestive, page 267, digestive. There's your table of contents. And again, don't stress about what's actually in these organ systems. I will have a separate video to go over what's in them. Right now, we're just getting an overview of this manual. Next section, excuse me, is page 325, urinary system. Again, your table of contents. Page 347 is your male genital. Page 347. Page 357 is your female genital. And again, in all of these table of contents, there's usually some pictures or something that will ultimately be very helpful to us. Okay, nervous system starts on page 375, nervous system. Again, lots of good pictures of the nervous system and of the brain. We'll be able to incorporate some of our medical terminology and label some of this stuff that will kind of help us. Then on page 409 is your eye and ocular adnexa. Also is your ears. I think your actual label, hopefully you can see this, is the OC and auditory. And then within this, I got it. Yep. Your auditory actually starts on page 426, but it's all in that section. It combines the eyes and the ears. I gotta get another cough syrup. Cough. Okay. Then we're done with the actual body parts. You see, we're done with the green. Now we're back to a different color. We're red again. This is the radiology section. As you can see, we've got our diagnostic imaging, x-rays. We have our diagnostic ultrasound. We have radiologic guidance, mammograms, oncology, nuke med. So all of that's in radiology. Again, don't sweat it. We will go over all of it, I promise. Okay, now we have a blue section. This is our pathology and lab. Path and lab, there's a whole lot in here. Some of it we kind of skip over because the board doesn't have a lot to do with it, like the molecular pathology and the molecular and genomic sequencing. We don't do a lot with that. It's very, very, very specialized, but those codes are in here. So this is your pathology and lab. Now we're at a different color. We're green now, and this is the medicine section. The medicine section is an absolute catch-all. These, I believe, are the codes that couldn't get in any of these other sections, so they just threw them all in here. And there's all kinds of stuff in here. This is where all your immunizations and vaccines are, your immune globulins, your dialysis, all of your eye exams. If you go to the eye doctor, you have some specialized hearing stuff. Do you see there's just pages in this, 3 whole pages in the table of contents for this section. So there's a lot in here. This section we will cover as the only chapter in a week too, because there's just so much in here. All right. So let's get, and that's where I have a lot of my kind of specialty kinds of tabs. If you can see, I got all kinds of specialty stuff. So when we cover that area, you may want to use those too. All right, then we have all of those were what's considered Category 1, CPT 4, however you want to call it. Now we have our Category 2 codes. These codes mainly deal with performance evaluation, quality assurance, performance measures, that kind of stuff for the docs. And if you look at them, all these codes end in F. Not a heck of a lot that we'll do with this. I want you to be aware of it because you'll have at least one question on the board that makes you come here. So just have it labeled. This, I didn't tell you the page number, did I? 681. And then on 701 is your Category 3 codes. If you look at these codes, all of them end in T. And how I remember these, T for temporary. So these are all different kinds of procedures or services that haven't quite either gotten popular enough by enough docs, or it's a brand new technique that they're just trying out. They haven't made it to the actual organ systems yet, but they're used enough that we've got to be able to track them. So T for temporary for your Category 3 codes. Then you have In the blue section here, you see how it turns blue again? All of this blue section is appendixes or appendices, all of them. Now, there's only one appendix that I actually routinely use, and it's Appendix L. So I just kind of flag my G through J, and it'll be that Appendix L. And when we're in the cardiovascular, we will cover this appendix. Doesn't matter if you label it now or later. It's okay. I'll remind you. Don't worry. But that's all. You can read about the different appendixes, like Appendix A. This one takes all of the modifiers that are way up here on the front cover, or cheat here on the front cover. It actually has all of them back here in explanation, like 22, and then it kind of explains it. 23 explains it, the whole thing. So that may be very helpful to you here at the beginning. Appendix B just tells you it's a summary of additions, deletions, and revisions. Not very helpful. It's good, I guess, if you're needing to find out what's different from the last year, but if you don't know last year's, this one isn't going to matter. So you can kind of go through. I think you have one exercise that kind of goes through these. This Appendix C, some people find it helpful because it gives you some clinical examples of your E&M levels, what you might see. So it might be helpful. And then you're on page 799, your index starts. Gives you some information about code ranges and conventions and all of that. All stuff that your chapter is covering as well. Excuse me, I tried to cover it that time. All right, so now we kind of have an overview of the CPT manual. Let's specifically, let me find an easy code. Let's talk a little bit about the different codes. Because remember, there's a symbol down here for an add-on, that the plus sign. Let me find, just a minute. Let me search a minute. Okay, this one will be easy. I am on page 71. This, what we're going to talk about very briefly, explains to you what a standalone code is and what an add-on code is. So if you look at code 10035 and 10036. 10035, the complete description of it is placement of soft tissue localization device, and then it gives examples, percutaneous, so that's through the skin, including imaging guidance, semicolon, first lesion. So for me to use 10035, I would have some type of localization device being placed through the skin into one lesion. Now let's say my scenario had 2 lesions. This is the first lesion. Your add-on code takes everything, see how it's indented? It takes everything in the standalone code to the semicolon, and then at the semicolon you read the rest of the add-on code is the rest of the description. So the full description for code 10036 is placement of the soft tissue localization device, clip, metallic, pellets, wire, needle, radioactive seeds, percutaneous, including imaging guidance, stop, because that's a semicolon, and then down at 10036, each additional lesion. So if we had 2 lesions, we would code the first lesion with 10035, the second lesion with 10036, in that order, because your standalone codes your add-on codes piggyback on your standalone codes. Your add-on codes piggyback on your standalone codes. Now, there are some instances where your add-on codes piggyback on a different standalone code that isn't directly above it. Most of the time, they're directly related like this is. Not all the time, but most of the time. So that's our standalone code, indented code, however you want to put it. Okay, so with this video, you should have your basic, excuse me, I am so sorry. You should have your basic labeling done for 2017. You should have an overview of your different organ systems now. You should know how to read and use the different symbols here at the bottom. And now you know your add-on and standalone codes. So you should be good to go to get started.